Hello friends, welcome back to my YouTube channel. In the present session, I shall give you a general introduction to tragedy. Now, in our day-to-day life, we have some conceptions regarding tragedy or tragic drama, and the usual conception regarding tragedy is what? That tragedy is a kind of play that ends in death or in disaster. But the very basic question is that is this general conception that exists among common people, is it a true marker of tragic drama or tragic play in the true sense of the term? This is a very basic question. Now, for answering this question, I personally feel that we should be more oriented with the theory of drama, particularly with the dramatic theory concerning tragedy. And for that, I feel that we should go back to Aristotle, because Aristotle, the famous ancient Greek philosopher and also the literary theorist, please remember here one thing, that in his own days, Aristotle was not known as a literary theorist, but for future generations, he became one of the greatest literary theorists ever born to write or to theorize on literature in general or on drama in particular. So Aristotle has some very remarkable observations on the nature, on the definition, and also on the scope and description of tragedy. And all this occurs in Aristotle's famous work Poetics, particularly in the 6th chapter of the work. So in 6th chapter of Poetics, Aristotle gives a very clear-cut definition of tragedy, and that is also followed by different descriptions of different parts that occur in the course of a tragic action. So here I feel that if we want to be theoretically more oriented with the term tragedy, then we should begin our discussion with Aristotle, and particularly with Aristotle's Poetics. So my dear friends, let us first of all take a look at the definition of tragedy that Aristotle gives in the 6th chapter of Poetics. Here I am quoting Aristotle, so please lend your ears for the time being for a fuller understanding of the definition itself. I am quoting Aristotle. A tragedy is the imitation of an action which is serious, complete in itself, and of a certain magnitude, in language embellished with certain ornaments, and whose purpose is to arouse our feelings of pity and fear, and also to provide a proper catharsis or purgation of such emotions. Unquote. Now, this is the definition of tragedy given by Aristotle in the 6th chapter of Poetics. Now, our task is to understand this definition, and I propose to understand this definition term by term or word by word. And for that, what should we do? We should take the definition into parts. We should compartmentalize the definition itself, and we should try to proceed term by term, word by word, so that we can actually decode the complexities of the definition of tragedy given by Aristotle himself. So first of all, let us take a very critical look at the first part of the definition. What does Aristotle say there? Tragedy is the imitation of an action which is serious. Now, three words are actually very important here in the first part of the definition of tragedy. The first important word is imitation, then second, action, and the third important word here is serious. Now, let us begin with the term imitation. What does Aristotle mean by imitation? Not only for Aristotle, but also for other classical ancient Greek philosophers like Plato, who was also the great teacher of Aristotle. For all of them, poetry or creative literature was a kind of imitation. In the Greek language, the word was mimesis. Mimesis spelling is what? M-I-M-E-S-I-S. In English translation, a very near word in signification to the original Greek word mimesis should be imitation. So poetry or creative art or creative literature for Plato, for Aristotle, and for all other famous classical philosophers and literary theorists was a kind of imitation. Imitation of what? Imitation of reality. So first of all, tragedy is an imitation. Imitation, mimesis. Since tragedy is also a form of creative literature, then this also imitates reality, no doubt about that. But what type of imitation do we find in tragedy? It is the imitation of an action. Why an action? Because tragedy is one type of drama. And drama can be broadly categorized into two types. On the first hand, there is tragedy, and on the other hand, there is comedy. So tragedy and comedy, as two types of drama, both of them imitate an action, because action is the very life force of drama. Drama is never meant to be read, my dear friends. Drama is rather primarily meant to be staged or for on-stage performance. So action is the very life force of drama. And since tragedy is one broad category of drama, definitely tragedy imitates an action. Action is the differentia of drama, and therefore we can very easily understand in tragedy also we are going to find the imitation or the mimesis of an action. But what type of an action? This action must be a serious action. Whereas comedy imitates a ludicrous or ridiculous action, a light-hearted action, tragedy does what? Tragedy, on the contrary, it imitates an action which must be serious. By serious action, what do you mean? By serious action, definitely we mean that which is a more weighty action, a more contemplative, a more grand action than what we usually find in our day-to-day goings on of life. In our normal goings on of life, we are faced with our humdrum normal human situations. But in tragedy, the theme is not going to be like that. In tragedy, you are going to encounter a theme which is very grand, which is very serious, which is magnificent, which is weighty. And not only that the theme is grand, but the character. The central character involved in the play, the tragic hero, he will also be a noble personality, a grand character having something in him that makes him totally different from ordinary humanity. The normal levels of human expectation, in comparison to that, the tragic hero will be a man who is far above, who is far superior to ordinary human beings. So tragedy will imitate an action, and that action will be a serious action. In contrast to that, comedy will be the imitation of an action which is ridiculous or which is ludicrous. So these are all the things that Aristotle mean in the first section of the definition of tragedy, and these are the significations, these are actually the implications of the different complex words used by Aristotle in the first part of the definition. And once again, if we remember, these words are imitation, then action, and then serious. In the second part of the definition, Aristotle says what? He says that this action is not only a serious action, but this action will be a complete action, a kind of action which will be complete in itself. Definitely here Aristotle is speaking about the plot of the play. Now what do you mean by plot? Plot is the logical arrangement of events in the course of the action. So the action, the on-stage action that we see going on the stage, this is the actual spectacle. But what is the plot? The plot is the logical framework of the action itself. And there, what should be there? First, there should be a very clear beginning, then a very well constructed middle, and finally a very logical conclusion. These three things must be there in a complete plot. A very clear beginning will be there. This beginning will logically or reasonably give way to the middle, and from the middle we will finally draw out the conclusion. So the beginning, the middle, and the end, These three will be entwined, these three will be entangled in a kind of very logical relation or link or association among themselves, and this logic will never be compromised with in the course of the action. So if the action of tragedy needs to be a complete action, then quite certainly there should be these three clear parts visible in the course of the action: a very well constructed beginning, then a very well defined middle, and finally a very logical end or conclusion of the play. Then Aristotle speaks of the magnitude of the action. By magnitude, Aristotle definitely refers to a proper volume or size of the action. Now, what is the volume or what is the size? The action of the tragedy, it must not be something which is too long, nor should it be something that is too short. If the length of the action is too short, then what will happen is that the audiences, the general public, they will not understand what is happening or what is going on the stage, because such a short action, it will remain below the levels of normal human perception. So if the action is too short, then the audiences will not understand what is actually happening on stage. And on the other hand, if the action is too big, if the action is too long, if the length of the action is really too big, then what will happen? The audiences will lose interest in the matter. So tragedy has to keep the audiences involved in the matter when the on-stage performance is going on. But if the length of the play, if the length of the action becomes too long, then definitely the audiences will lose their interest in the matter. They will rather be bored in it. So the action must not be too short, it must not be too long. It must be something that falls within the normal scope, within the normal periphery of human perception, for a greater understanding, for an actual understanding of the audience as to what is happening on stage. This is what Aristotle means by a proper magnitude of the action. And then he also speaks about the language of the play. In language, a tragedy must be embellished with certain ornaments. Here, ornaments means figurative language. The language of a tragedy must not be the language of day-to-day life. It must not be colloquial language. It must be a very figurative or ornamental language. Because we must remember, tragedy presents before us a very grand spectacle. The theme is grand. The character involved in tragedy, he is also a noble or superior character. So the language must be befitting to the theme and to the character. Therefore, the language must be something that is also in tune with the grand theme and grand character of the play. The language must be embellished with ornaments, or it must be decorative or figurative language. Now, apart from all these issues, in the second part of the definition, Aristotle speaks about the function of tragedy. And what is the function? The function is primarily to arouse our feelings of pity and fear. What is this pity about? When we see the on-stage performance of tragedy, then definitely our minds are filled with the primary feelings of pity. Why? Because tragedy presents before us a spectacle where we find a man who is otherwise a very noble personality, who has some very noble qualities about himself or noble qualities in him, but this man suffers because of an innate fault that is called hubris, Hubris. This is the very cause of his tragic fall. Hubris means what? Too much pride. There would be too much pride involved in the character of a tragedy, in the central character of a tragedy, and this will lead him to do what? This will lead him to miscalculate in a situation, in a crucial situation, when he is expected to take a very correct decision. His innate fault, whatever was wrong already in his character, his hubris, his pride, will lead him to some kind of miscalculation under the pressure of circumstances, or because of an innate fault of his own in a crucial moment when he has to take a correct decision. But in that crucial moment, he will choose in the wrong way. He will go in the wrong way, and this will be the occasion for the entry of fate, of destiny, into the ways of his life. And then what will happen? This man, because of this fault, because of this error of judgment that is called hamartia, Hamartia, because of this error of judgment, this man will finally fall from sky height to the dust. So when we see this spectacle of the tragic fall of the tragic hero, who in spite of having very noble qualities in him finally becomes subject to terrible suffering or tremendous suffering, then definitely our minds are filled with pity for that character. So this is the occasion, this is the cause of the pity. Now Aristotle speaks about yet another emotion that tragedy arouses in our mind, and what is that? Fear. What is this fear, or what is this terror about? Our minds are not only filled with pity for the tragic hero, but we are also frightened. Why frightened? Because when we see the spectacle of the tragic fall of the tragic hero before our eyes, then we also feel afraid or frightened in our mind with the idea that under a similar situation, under the pressure of circumstances, or because of some innate fault of our own character, we might also miscalculate in the same way as does the tragic hero. And this will also become the scope, the cause for the entry of fate or for of misfortune in the ways of our life too. So just as the tragic hero suffers because of a fault of his own, similarly such a situation might befall our lives also if we miscalculate and if we take the wrong decision in the very crucial moment. So this is the cause of the fear. This is why we are frightened on seeing the spectacle of a tragic play. So tragic play or the tragic performance, it arouses two primary feelings in our minds. One is pity on seeing the tragic fall of the tragic hero, and the second is fear. Why fear? Once again, if we try to remember, we feel afraid or we feel frightened on seeing the fall of the tragic hero because such a fall, it can also occur in our lives too if we choose in the wrong way, if we also miscalculate like the tragic hero. So this is the cause of the fear. Now, Aristotle does not stop here. He also says one more thing, and that is tragedy not only arouses our feelings of pity and fear, but it also provides a proper catharsis or purgation of such emotions. Catharsis, Catharsis. This Greek term is also a very complex term which is used by Aristotle in Poetics, particularly in the 6th chapter when or where he tries to define tragedy. Now, what does catharsis mean? This is a Greek word. If we try to render or translate this word into English, then a word very near in signification to the original Greek word catharsis would be purgation, Purgation. Now, purgation in the English language, this is more or less a medical term. It means what? It means to take away from the human body some abnormal growth so that the body can be brought back to its normal levels of peace and poise. Suppose a man is suffering from an abscess. An abscess is what? An abscess is a kind of disease which is caused by the accumulation of pus under the skin. So this causes pain and this causes swelling, this causes disturbance to the body. But if the abscess can be cut off, if the pus that is accumulated under the skin, if that pus can be drained away from the body, then definitely the body will go back to its normal levels of sound health. So tragedy, as per Aristotle, also serves a function like that. How? Tragedy arouses our latent feelings of pity and fear. Pity and fear, these two are quite normal human emotions. And sometimes these human emotions are latent in our mind. We are not always aware of them in our conscious mind. They might remain in our subconscious levels, but they are still there. And the excess of pity and fear, It does what? The excess of pity and fear, it continues to disturb our mind, it continues to agitate our mind, though we are not always aware about that in our conscious brain or in our conscious mind. So yes, normal human feelings, normal human emotions like pity and fear, they are quite okay, they are quite all right, they are quite normal. But if there is excess of such emotions, then that is also detrimental to our mental health. Now, when we see the performance of a tragic drama, when the tragic spectacle is there before our eyes, then definitely our latent feelings of pity and fear, they are aroused to the full. And when the feelings of pity and fear are aroused to the full, then definitely they cause some kind of disturbance, some kind of turbulence or turmoil to our mind. Our mind is also agitated with the feelings of too much pity and fear. But what happens at the end, when the action closes, when the play ends, then with the end or with the closure of the action, it also drains away, it also takes away whatever was there in excess in your brain. That means it takes away the excessive pity and fear from your mind, and thereby your mind regains its equilibrium, your mind regains its normal levels of peace and poise. This is what Aristotle means by catharsis. So catharsis does not mean to purge the human mind of the normal levels of pity and fear, but to take away the excessive feelings of pity and fear from the human brain or from the human mind, so that the mind goes back to its normal levels of peace and poise. This is what Aristotle means by catharsis here. And to understand this thing, we can refer to a very famous line written by John Milton. And yes, here I am speaking about a very famous verse drama by John Milton, which is titled Samson Agonistes. Now, the last line of this verse drama is what? If we quote John Milton here, "Calm of mind, all passion spent." This is exactly the end of tragedy. It leads your mind to come, CALM, to a perfect quietude, to perfect peace and harmony and equilibrium, when all passion, when all agitations, when all disturbances and turmoils are over. So what Aristotle meant by catharsis in his definition of tragedy in Poetics chapter 6 perhaps find its best literary expansion at the hands of John Milton in the concluding line of Samson Agonistes. So my dear friends, these are all the complex things that are associated with the definition of tragedy given by Aristotle in the 6th chapter of Poetics. Now, one thing remains for us to clarify here. We began our discussion with a very usual human conception regarding tragedy, and that is what? That tragedy is something that must end in either death or in disaster. Yes, this was very much a concept related to Elizabethan or Renaissance English tragedy. But if we speak about Greek tragedy, if we speak about the classical definition of tragedy given by Aristotle, then we find that this is definitely not a very much necessary prerequisite for tragedy, that a tragedy must end in death and disaster. Rather, a tragedy, to be a tragedy in the true sense of term, it requires to be the imitation of a very serious action, and the action must be complete in itself, it must be of a certain magnitude. In language, it must be embellished with ornaments, and finally it will arouse our feelings of pity and fear, and also provide a proper purgation or catharsis of such emotions. So my dear friends, this is all about I can share with you regarding the definition of tragedy given by Aristotle in Poetics chapter 6. I think that this discussion will come to your help for your general understanding of the definition of tragedy. Now, if you find this discussion helpful, then please subscribe to my YouTube channel and wait for more audios and videos for you to come. In our next video, we shall be discussing about the true nature of a tragic hero, and also about two more terms related to tragedy, and their peripety and anagnorisis, or in other words, reversal and recognition. These things are also going to be very much integral parts of tragic drama. So for the present, let us stop here for today. I hope this discussion will come to your help. So my dear friends, I thank you all for attentively listening to me. Thank you very much. Thank you again.